Okay, welcome back. Hopefully you've spent some time with chapter 2.a. That chapter, it was a long one, I know, but it was really important because it helps you to understand the philosophical demand for the and the point of connection in history for the emergence of Rastafari. That matters fundamentally. Without a good solid grounding in that, it's going to be difficult to understand Babylon and Zion. And Babylon and Zion, they come up again and again. Yeah, once again, I really just recommend, if you haven't seen chapter 2.a, go back and watch chapter 2.a. It's a worthwhile investment because essentially we're going to be building upon that now, and we can move quicker because we understand the philosophical reasons for its emergence. So let's begin. By the time Rastafari emerges, something decisive has already happened. The question is no longer simply where power sits, but whether power deserves the loyalty it assumes. Babylon and Zion are the names given to that question. They are not metaphors in the casual sense, they are lenses, ways of sorting reality to that power, legitimacy. So that power and legitimacy and hope can be evaluated without confusion. When these terms are misunderstood, Rastafari sounds either paranoid or poetic. When these terms are understood properly, they sound precise, hence chapter 2.a. Babylon is not at first a villain, it's a diagnosis. Babylon names any system that claims moral authority whilst distancing itself from accountability. It is power that demands obedience because it exists, not because it is righteous. It can be legal, it can be efficient, it can even speak the language of order and virtue. What makes it Babylon is not chaos, but the quiet assumption that functioning equals goodness. For people shaped by slavery and colonial administration, this pattern was not theoretical. Law arrived impersonally, authority spoke from above, discipline was enforced without consent. Christianity itself was often presented as a support beam for the existing order rather than a challenge to it. So Babylon is recognized not by what it promises, but by how it arrives. It arrives backed by force. It expects compliance, it punishes dissent and disorder, and it rarely has to justify itself to those who it governs. This is why Rastafari does not place its hope in reform alone. Better management does not address the deeper problem. The issue is not simply that power is misused, it's that power, once abstracted from personhood and insulated by systems, begins to serve itself. Zion is the counter orientation to this, but Zion is not a rival system. Zion is not first a place, a state, or a political project. It's a moral horizon, a standard held in view rather than a structure imposed. Zion names the conviction that righteousness exists independently of present power, and that no system currently ruling can claim to embody it fully. This is why Zion is not built, it is awaited, lived towards, carried as an orientation rather than enforced as a policy. This distinction matters because the temptation to bring Zion by force is strong. If Babylon is corrupt, why not overthrow it? If righteousness matters, why not impose it? We see this time and time again in the world that we currently live in. Rastafari refuses that path because it recognizes something hard earned. You cannot build Zion using Babylon's tools. Power granted through domination reproduces domination. Systems that promise purity through control inevitably generate new forms of oppression. This is not idealism. This is memory. This is memory. So Rastafari lives between Babylon and Zion, inside systems it does not trust, under laws it does not grant a final authority to, oriented towards a righteousness it refuses to weaponize. This creates tension, and the tension is real. When moral consent is withdrawn, people immediately ask about law. If Babylon is not ultimate, whose authority governs? If Zion is real, why not demand its rules now? Why not establish parallel courts, religious law, or separate jurisdictions? This anxiety is understandable. Most people would be deeply uncomfortable living alongside a group that claimed legal authority in competition with the shared civic order. The unease many people feel about religious courts opening beside civil law, even when participation is voluntary, comes from a clear intuition. Parallel jurisdiction fractures shared consent and introduce coercion by another name. Rastafari does not ask for that power. It does not demand courts. It does not claim jurisdiction. It does not insist that others submit to its rules. What is withdrawn is not practical compliance, but moral authority. Sorry, moral ultimacy. Moral ultimacy. Rastafari generally obeys the law. It works, pays taxes, raises family, and lives inside existing legal frameworks. What it refuses is the idea that these frameworks define righteousness simply by existing. This posture can seem unstable to those trained to think administratively. If a system is not ultimate, why obey it at all? If Zion is real, why not enforce it? Here is an unexpected parallel with early Christian thought. Yeah, this is where an early Christian thought becomes illuminating. The Apostle Paul makes a striking claim when addressing disputes among believers. He reminds them that in the end they will judge even angels. This point is not bravado. Paul is not calling for Christians to seize authority and overthrow courts or establish parallel legal system. In fact, he instructs believers to live peaceably within the government order. What Paul does is relocate judgment. He separates present obedience from ultimate authority. Christians may be judged now, but they are not finally defined by those judgments. They may live under Roman law, but Roman law does not possess ultimate standing over reality itself. That future-orientated confidence enables restraint in the present. Rastafari operates within a similar logic, though it resolves it differently. Babylon may rule now, law may judge now, power may enforce now, but none of these are treated as final. Zion is not imposed, it is awaited, it is lived towards, it is held as real without being weaponized. This refusal to seize authority is not confusion, it is restraint. It accepts vulnerability rather than coercion. It chooses to live under imperfect systems rather than become another system that must enforce its vision. It refuses to claim moral purity through control. That choice has cost. Living without parallel law means living with unresolved tension. Conflicts must be navigated without formal adjudication. Authority remains informal. Inconsistency is risked. Ambiguity is endured. But coercion is avoided. Rastafari seems to judge that this cost is preferable to the alternative, the creation of a new Babylon wearing religious language. It would rather live exposed than dominate. It would rather wait than rule universally. This does not solve the problem of power. It does not pretend judgment can be avoided. It relocates judgment away from the present exercise of force and towards a moral horizon that cannot be enforced without becoming what it opposes. That is why Babylon and Zion function as lenses rather than solutions. They do not promise safety. What they do is they promise clarity. They allow a person to live inside systems without surrendering to them. They obey laws without worshipping them. They build, work, and endure without mistaking order for righteousness. They demand discipline, seriousness, and restraint. And they leave a question deliberately unanswered. If power is unavoidable but dangerous, what kind of authority, if any, can rule without becoming Babylon? Rastafari does not resolve that question. It refuses to lie about it. It lives beneath the tension rather than escaping it. And that, more than anything else, explains both its limits and its endurance. So you can see there's some real deep thought going on here, and it's been really fascinating to walk this journey and to explore this, and just shows you how much, coming from a Caribbean community as I did, we weren't exposed to any of this. I'm not saying this to say, oh look, Rastafari is the ultimate. And I think that it's interesting that the philosophy almost suggests, yeah, it's not the ultimate. I don't think that at all. But I am a Christian, and I firmly believe in Christian thought, and we will get into that later, much later, later. But I just feel that there was so much that we weren't told. We haven't been told. All that's been given to us was a caricature, and as such, there was so much that wasn't shared with us about this particular movement, and we're not richer for it. We're not richer for it, and it's important for different reasons. But one of the reasons why, personally, I found particularly this chapter and the last one so important was because, as a descendant of slaves myself, this is living memory. This is living memory. These people are really, there's people who've really spent time thinking about things and why this matters, and how power is applied, and systems of oppression with regards to people who have just arrived out of a slave system. And yeah, I can see why this, for me, was more subconsciously important than than um than I at first would meet the eye. And I can imagine it's actually probably going to be eye-opening for a lot of people, for a lot of you guys just watching this and being exposed to it. Even if you don't have the same background as myself, come from completely different background, different part of the world. That's absolutely, I can get how I can get how you can still be fascinated by this particular underreached group who have suffered so much at the hands of others, whether just dishonor is the the best word I'm looking for. Just dishonor, dishonor. And as we go through this, as you can see that is absolutely undeserved, absolutely undeserved. And it's a crying shame. And you can see that the thought that went into this, it it they this is a group that does deserve honor. I'm not saying that everything they do, whatever, should be agreed with. I'm not saying it even slightly, but they clearly deserve honor, and it's clearly been withheld. And yeah, that's not right. That's not right. That's not right at all. All right then. Looking forward to the next chapter. Thank you very much, and I'll see you then.